What archaeologists just found beneath Easter Island will leave you shocked. Far out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean lies a remote island cloaked in mystery. A place so isolated that it Asbehinkajed, the navel of the world. This is Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, home to nearly 1,000 colossal stone statues known as Moai. Silent sentinels, carved from volcanic rock, standing as the last witnesses of a vanished civilization. For centuries, these towering figures have puzzled explorers, scientists, and historians alike. Who carved them? How were they moved across the island without modern tools or animals? And perhaps, most importantly, what lies beneath them? Recent archaeological discoveries have begun to answer those questions. And the truth is more astonishing than anyone ever imagined. Beneath the soil of Easter Island, researchers are uncovering hidden chambers, buried carvings, and ancient symbols that challenge everything we thought we knew about this lost world. Using advanced technology like ground-penetrating radar, 3D mapping, and DNA analysis, modern science is revealing a complex civilization with engineering genius, astronomical knowledge, and possible links to other ancient cultures across the Pacific, and even beyond. These discoveries suggest that Easter Island was not just an isolated outpost, but perhaps part of a larger ancient network, one that shared sacred symbols, navigation secrets, and a cosmic understanding of the stars. In this documentary, we'll journey deep beneath the volcanic soil of Rapa Nui through its forgotten tunnels and sacred grounds, to uncover what archaeologists just found beneath Easter Island, a story that may forever change how we see the ancient world. Because what lies buried beneath these giant stone faces is not just history, it's a revelation. The enigma of Easter Island in the remote reaches of the Pacific Ocean lies a small island that has puzzled explorers, historians, and archaeologists for centuries. This is Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as it's known to its native people, a volcanic speck of land isolated by thousands of kilometers of open water. It's one of the most mysterious places on Earth, shrouded in legend, silence, and stone. When the first European explorers arrived on Easter Sunday in 1722, they found something completely unexpected. Hundreds of colossal stone statues standing guard across the island. These towering figures, known as Moai, gazed inland, with solemn, timeless expressions. Their backs faced the sea, as if protecting something hidden deep within the island. From that day, the world's fascination with Easter Island began. The sheer isolation of Rapa Nui only deepened its mystery. How did the ancient Polynesians who settled there manage to create and transport these massive statues, each weighing up to 80 tons and standing as tall as a 3-story building? And, even more puzzling, why were they built? Generations of archaeologists have studied the Moai, trying to decipher their meaning and uncover the secrets of the vanished civilization that built them. Some theories suggest they were made to honor ancestors. Others claim they represented tribal power, while a few go as far as to suggest contact with extraterrestrial beings. But for centuries, one question remained largely unexplored. What lies beneath them? Beneath the serene faces and towering forms of the Moai, something extraordinary was waiting to be discovered. For years, scientists assumed that the statues were just heads, a misunderstanding fueled by early photographs that showed only their upper portions protruding from the earth. But the truth was far more astonishing. In the early 20th century, a few excavations hinted that the Moai were not merely heads, but full-bodied figures buried up to their shoulders in the volcanic soil. Still, it wasn't until recent decades that modern archaeologists returned with advanced technology, ground-penetrating radar, drones, and digital mapping to explore the hidden depths of Easter Island. What they found would shake the foundations of our understanding of ancient engineering, cultural symbolism, and human endurance. But before diving into those discoveries, it is important to understand how Easter Island came to be such an isolated enigma in the first place. Geographically, Rapa Nui is one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world, located bare 3,700 kilometers from the coast of Chile, and nearly 2,000 kilometers from its nearest inhabited neighbor. This isolation made it a unique time capsule of human achievement, untouched by outside influence for centuries. The island was born of volcanic fire, its rugged landscape shaped by 3 extinct volcanoes, Teravaca, Poik, and Ranokau. Between them, ancient settlers carved the life out of the unforgiving land. These settlers were part of the vast Polynesian expansion, navigators who crossed the Pacific using only the stars, ocean currents, and birds to guide them. Around 1200 CE, they reached Rapa Nui, bringing with them their culture, language, and spiritual beliefs. They found an island covered in forests, teeming with seabirds and fertile enough to sustain life. It was paradise, in the middle of nowhere. But over time, paradise turned into isolation. The population grew, resources dwindled, and rival clans began to compete for power. Out of this struggle emerged the creation of the Moai, massive stone figures, meant to immortalize ancestors and assert clandom. Each statue represented a powerful lineage, believed to channel spiritual energy known as mana to protect the living. For centuries, the islanders carved, transported, and erected these statues, using only stone tools and human effort. Hundreds of Moai were sculpted from the volcanic tuff of Ranora, the main quarry, where half-finished statues still lie today, frozen in time. The people of Rapa Nui somehow moved them across great distances, balancing them upright as they walked, using ropes and rhythmic coordination. But as the years passed, the Moai became more than symbols of pride. They became symbols of obsession. Forests were cut down to clear paths and transport logs. The ecosystem began to collapse. Without trees, soil eroded, and crops failed. The once thriving island fell into famine and chaos. When European explorers arrived, they found a shattered society. The people who had forgotten their past, their technology, and even the meaning behind their colossal creations. The Moai stood as silent witnesses to a lost civilization. And yet, the mystery deepened further. Over the years, archaeologists began to suspect that the true story of the Moai was buried literally beneath the surface. Legends among the Rapa Nui people spoke of underground chambers, ancient tunnels, and sacred foundations beneath the statues. Could there be more to these figures than meets the eye? Were they connected to subterranean structures, burial sites, or even hidden treasures from an age long forgotten? The turning point came when the Easter Island Statue Project, led by researchers from the University of California, began a series of scientific excavations in the early 2000s. Using new technology and careful digging, they unearthed what had been concealed for centuries. Beneath the heads, they found massive torsos, intricate carvings, and mysterious inscriptions. These discoveries confirmed that the Moai were not just heads. They were full-bodied giants, intentionally buried over time by natural processes and human intervention. But the excavations also revealed something far more profound. Underground layers filled with petroglyphs, ceremonial tools, and evidence of complex construction techniques. The soil around the Moai wasn't just dirt, it was history. Layer upon layer of ashes, sediment, and debris told the story of centuries of ritual, migration, and survival. And buried beneath some statues, archaeologists found remnants of platforms known as Sahu that were far older than previously believed. It was becoming clear that the builders of Easter Island possessed knowledge and abilities far beyond what modern science had given them credit for. They were engineers, astronomers, and spiritual visionaries who encoded their understanding of the world into stone. But even as these discoveries shed light on some mysteries, they opened the door to others. What purpose did the carvings on the buried portions of the statues serve, if they were meant to be hidden? Why did some Moai have intricate symbols and markings on their backs, visible only during construction and later buried forever? Archaeologists began to suspect that these hidden carvings weren't decorative. They might hold clues to the lost beliefs and rituals of Rapa Nui's ancient priests. Some researchers suggested that the buried inscriptions could represent maps of the stars or even cosmological symbols, linking the island's people to their Polynesian ancestors and possibly to places far beyond the Pacific. As modern science continues to probe the depths of Rapa Nui, the story of Easter Island keeps evolving. What lies beneath its surface may hold answers not only to the mystery of the Moai, but also to humanity's eternal drive to build, worship. I remember the Moai mystery. What lies beneath the giants? The Moai statues of Easter Island have long captured the world. Ase Machinasia, towering stone figures with emotionless faces. They stand silently across the windswept landscape, guardians of a civilization that disappeared long ago. But for centuries, only part of their story was visible. Literally, to the casual observer, the Moai appeared as giant heads jutting out of the earth, weathered by centuries of rain and time. Few suspected that beneath the surface, these monuments concealed secrets that would astonish even the most skeptical archaeologists. For generations, visitors believed the statues were simply massive heads, an assumption reinforced by photographs that showed only the upper portions emerging from grassy slopes. The idea of Easter Island heads became iconic, a cultural shorthand for ancient mystery. But as soil and volcanic ash accumulated over centuries, the true size and design of the Moai remained hidden. The first real clues came more than a century ago. Early explorers in the 1910s and 1920s occasionally noted that some of the statues seemed to have shoulders and torsos buried in the ground. But at the time, there was little scientific interest in verifying what lay beneath. It wasn't until much later, with the advent of modern archaeological methods, that the truth began to surface quite literally. When researchers from the Easter Island Statue Project ISP returned to the quarry at Rano, they began systematic excavations around several partially buried Moai. What they uncovered was breathtaking. Beneath the familiar heads were massive torsos, intricately carved arms, hands, and even detailed tattoos or symbols etched into the stone. The statues were not simple busts. They were full-bodied creations standing up to 33 feet tall. Imagine the astonishment of archaeologists as they brushed away layers of compacted volcanic ash to reveal shoulders and torsos that had not seen the light of day for perhaps 800 years. The carvings extended far deeper than anyone imagined. Some statues were buried up to their necks, others nearly to their waists, their true scale hidden beneath centuries of erosion and landslides. But that was just the beginning. As the team excavated deeper, they noticed something unexpected. The buried surfaces of the statues were covered with intricate petroglyphs. These included crescent shapes, circular symbols, and mysterious geometric designs that appeared to have ritual or astronomical significance. It was a revelation that suggested the Moai weren't just works of art, but coded monuments holding ancient knowledge. The discovery transformed what the world thought it knew about Easter Island. These weren't heads at all. They were entire human forms, carved with skill, precision, and deep spiritual purpose. Many had elongated torsos, subtle musculature, and fingers resting on their bellies. A posture that symbolized respect, reverence, or connection to the divine in Polynesian culture. The excavation team also discovered that each statue stood on carefully engineered platforms known as ahu, made of stacked stone, and sometimes lined with red scoria, a volcanic rock found elsewhere on the island. These platforms served as ceremonial altars, connecting the Moai to the ancestors they represented. Some of these platforms even contained human burials, suggesting that the statues functioned not only as memorials, but as gateways between the world of the living and the spirits of the dead. Yet, the question remained: why were the bodies buried in the first place? Was it intentional, or the result of natural processes over the centuries? Archaeologists now believe the answer lies in both nature and human action. The Rano Raraku Quarry, where most Moai were carved, sits on a volcanic slope prone to erosion. Over time, heavy rainfall washed sediment down the hills, slowly burying the statues. Layers of ash from past volcanic activity added to the accumulation, creating a natural shroud of soil. But there is also evidence that some statues were deliberately backfilled during rituals or to stabilize them against collapse. In some cases, the burial may have been symbolic, an act of returning the ancestor to the earth, ensuring their spiritual energy remained tied to the land. In other cases, it may have been purely practical, a way to prevent erosion from toppling the statues. Whatever the reason, the result was that much of the Moai's true form remained hidden from the world until modern archaeology began peeling back the layers. As excavation continued, the discoveries became even more astonishing. Beneath several Moai, researchers found evidence of man-made retaining walls, drainage systems, and buried ceremonial pavements, proof of a sophisticated engineering approach. These findings suggested that the builders were not simply carving giant stones. They were constructing an integrated sacred landscape. But perhaps the most intriguing finding of all was the material composition of the statues. Using microscopic analysis, scientists identified fine-grained volcanic tuff that was surprisingly soft when first quarried but hardened upon exposure to air. This meant the Rapa Nui carvers could shape the statues with relatively simple tools before the stone solidified into the durable monoliths we see today. Even more remarkably, the chemical composition of the volcanic material appeared to differ subtly between statues. This could indicate that the builders deliberately selected stone with certain properties, perhaps for spiritual reasons, or to align with specific clans or rituals. Each Moai may have been more than just an image. It was a unique vessel for ancestral power, tailored to its creator's intentions. The more the team discovered, the more questions arose. Why did some statues have elaborate carvings on their backs, while others were smooth? Why were some buried up to the chest, while others stood fully exposed? And what did the buried inscriptions visible only during construction and then lost for centuries truly mean? One of the most haunting discoveries was the realization that the statue's burial might have preserved messages meant for the future. The hidden carvings, invisible to ancient islanders once the statues were raised, seemed to have been deliberately placed. Some researchers believe they symbolized knowledge meant to endure, secret messages carved into stone to withstand the erosion of time, only to be revealed when humanity was ready to understand them. As archaeologists examined these markings, they found patterns that seemed to align with celestial phenomena. Some statues faced a sunrise or sunset during solstices, suggesting that the builders had a deep understanding of astronomy. The Moai may have served not only as ancestral guardians, but also as markers of time, a living calendar set in stone. When these discoveries were first made public, they reignited global fascination with Easter Island. The notion that the Moai were full-bodied figures buried under layers of history captured the imagination of millions. It challenged the simplistic image of mysterious heads and replaced it with something far more complex. A civilization capable of intricate planning, architectural mastery, and spiritual depth. But with every question answered, new mysteries emerged. Beneath some of the statues, archaeologists detected unexplained cavities and tunnels, voids that could not be easily explained by erosion. Were these natural formations, or remnants of ancient construction? Could they lead to burial chambers, ritual spaces, or even deeper secrets buried within the island itself? Ground-penetrating radar scans revealed patterns consistent with man-made structures beneath certain Moai platforms. The implications were staggering. The statues might only be the visible part of a vast, interconnected ceremonial network, a sacred architecture hidden beneath the soil. In recent years, as technology has advanced, archaeologists have begun mapping these underground anomalies with increasing precision. What they are finding suggests that Easter Island's mystery is not limited to the surface. Beneath the land of Rapa Nui, there may lie an entire world, tunnels, chambers, and relics waiting to tell the rest of the story. The Moai were not just sculptures, they were markers, guardians placed over something deeper, something that had been intentionally hidden or lost to time. As excavations continue, each layer of soil removed brings us closer to understanding what the islanders were truly trying to preserve. And as scientists dig deeper, they are beginning to realize that what lies beneath Easter Island could rewrite the history of human ingenuity itself. Secrets beneath the soil, hidden chambers, and underground passages. The mystery of Easter Island had always been monumental. Moai statues standing like sentinels from another age. Yet, as archaeologists began peeling back the layers of volcanic soil that had hidden the statues' full bodies, they realized that the real story might not be above the ground at all. The earth beneath their feet held whispers of something deeper, traces of underground networks, sealed chambers, and ancient engineering far ahead of its time. For decades, the island's surface had been the focus of exploration. The statues, the platforms, the quarries. But now, scientists were starting to suspect that Easter Island's most important secrets lay beneath the surface. The idea that tunnels or chambers might exist below the Moai wasn't new. Local legends had hinted at it for centuries. The Rapa Nui people spoke of sacred caves, used as burial sites, hiding places, and spiritual portals to the world of the dead. At first, such stories were dismissed as folklore. But when archaeologists began applying modern technology like ground-penetrating radar GPR and magnetic resonance mapping, they were astonished. Beneath certain statued platforms, the instruments detected anomalies, patterns of voids and passages. Inconsistent with natural rock formations, something man-made appeared to be buried under the Moai. The discoveries began near the Rano Raraku quarry, the sacred birthplace of most of the statues. As researchers scanned the slopes, they found subtle hollows and narrow conduits extending from beneath partially buried statues into the bedrock. When small cameras were inserted through thin boreholes, they revealed dark, winding tunnels, some large enough for a person to crawl through. Inside, the walls were smooth, almost polished, suggesting deliberate shaping rather than erosion. Traces of soot were found on the ceilings, hinting that torches had once illuminated these subterranean spaces. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials within these tunnels pointed to ages of over 800 years, placing their construction during the height of the Rapa Nui civilization. These were not simple caves. They were man-made corridors, built with precision and purpose. Some appeared to connect directly to ceremonial platforms known as ahu, where Moai stood guard above. Others seemed to stretch toward the island's volcanic craters, possibly linking important ritual sites together in an underground network. Archaeologists were stunned. The island's people, long thought to have possessed only rudimentary tools, had somehow mastered underground construction in one of the most remote places on Earth. How had they done it? And why? As excavations continued, researchers uncovered hidden chambers beneath several platforms. Inside, they found fragments of obsidian tools, carved wooden figures known as tangata manu, bird, and even human remains carefully arranged in ceremonial poses. These findings suggested that the tunnels and chambers weren't just for storage or escape. They were sacred spaces. The Birdman carvings provided an especially intriguing link. The Tangata Manu cult, which arose after the decline of the Moai building era, revolved around an annual competition to retrieve the first egg of a sacred seabird. The winner was declared a divine messenger between the gods and humanity. That these symbols appeared deep within the tunnels indicated a continuity of spiritual belief, a civilization evolving its rituals yet maintaining a connection to the same sacred spaces. But not all discoveries fit neatly into known Rapa Nui traditions. In one underground chamber beneath the Ehu Vinapu site, archaeologists uncovered perfectly fitted basalt slabs, so precisely joined that a sheet of paper couldn't fit between them. The masonry bore a striking resemblance to the megalithic stonework of the Inca in South America, thousands of kilometers away across the Pacific. This resemblance sparked a wave of new theories. Could there have been ancient contact between the Rapa Nui and Andean civilizations? Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian explorer who famously sailed his raft Kentucky across the Pacific, had long suggested that South American voyagers might have reached Easter Island centuries before European discovery. The precision stonework beneath Vainapu reignited that controversial debate. While mainstream archaeologists remain cautious, the evidence raises an unsettling possibility that the people of Rapa Nui were part of a wider prehistoric network of oceanic cultures, sharing ideas, symbols, and technologies across vast distances. As scientists probed deeper into the tunnels, they encountered carvings on the walls, spirals, waves, and geometric grids, unlike the surface. Petroglyphs found elsewhere on the island. Some experts speculated these designs represented maps or alignments with celestial events. Others suggested they encoded clan genealogies or mythological stories passed down through generations. One of the most remarkable findings came from a chamber near the base of Ranokau, the island's largest volcano. There, researchers discovered a stone table carved directly from the bedrock, surrounded by niches filled with fragments of obsidian and coral. The positioning of the chamber corresponded precisely to the sunset at the equinox, suggesting that ancient priests used it as an underground observatory or ritual calendar. These findings forced archaeologists to reconsider the sophistication of Rapa Nui's ancient engineers. Far from being primitive, the island's people had an advanced understanding of geometry, astronomy, and acoustics. The tunnel's curved walls amplified sound, creating resonant echoes when chants were performed, a design feature that may have been intended to enhance spiritual ceremonies. But the more scientists explored, the more they realized how little they still knew. Some tunnels were blocked by collapses, others flooded or sealed with stone plugs that seemed deliberately placed. Local oral traditions warned that certain caves were taboo entrances to the world of spirits that must never be disturbed. Even today, many of these subterranean passages remain unexplored, either because they are too fragile or because local elders restrict access out of respect for ancestral sanctity. Yet satellite imaging has revealed that the network could extend across large portions of the island, possibly connecting ancient villages, quarries, and ceremonial centers into a vast spiritual grid. There are even rumors whispered among some Rapa Nui guides and researchers of hidden chambers still sealed beneath the largest Moai platforms, chambers that may contain sacred relics, tablets of the mysterious Rongorongo script or other artifacts capable of rewriting Easter Island's entire history. The Rongorongo tablets themselves add another layer of enigma. Discovered in the 19th century, these wooden planks are inscribed with glyphs that no one has ever successfully deciphered. Some believe they represent a written language unique to Rapa Nui, evidence of an indigenous literacy long before European contact. Others think they are mnemonic symbols for oral chants or genealogies. If such tablets are ever found within the underground structures, they could finally unlock the island's lost knowledge, its religion, science, and origins. But until that day, their mystery remains sealed beneath stone and earth. In recent years, advanced 3D mapping of the tunnels has revealed another astonishing feature: alignment patterns that mirror star constellations. Some underground passages appear to point towards celestial targets, such as the Pleiades cluster or the Southern Cross, which held deep significance in Polynesian navigation and mythology. Could the Moai above ground and the tunnels below have been part of one vast cosmic design, a map of heaven mirrored upon the earth? Some archaeologists think so. They argued that the Moai were more than memorials. They were anchors of cosmic energy, connecting the islanders to their ancestors and the stars. The buried tunnels beneath them might have represented the underworld, the realm of spirits and creation. Together, they formed a complete spiritual cosmos: the heavens above, the living world at the surface, and the ancestral realm below. As breathtaking as these discoveries are, they remain only partially understood. Much of the underground network remains inaccessible, its secrets locked behind layers of rock and ritual taboo. But one thing is certain: the builders of Easter Island were not simple islanders crafting idols. They were architects of a living monument, a civilization that expressed its beliefs not just in stone, but in the very bones of the earth. Every excavation, every scan, every fragment recovered adds another piece to a puzzle that stretches beyond archaeology into the realms of myth, spirituality, and human imagination. And as scientists dig further, the signs suggest that Easter Island's story might be connected to something even larger: a shared legacy of megalithic builders around the world who encoded their knowledge of the earth and stars in stone. Ancient engineering and lost knowledge. As archaeologists continued to dig deeper beneath Easter Island's sacred soil, they began to realize something extraordinary. The builders of Rapa Nui weren't merely island sculptors. They were engineers, astronomers, and spiritual mathematicians, guided by a knowledge that seemed to defy their environment and their era. How could a small, isolated community, living thousands of kilometers away from any major civilization, have created some of the world's most sophisticated and enduring stone monuments? How did they carve, transport, and erect statues that weighed as much as a modern military tank, all without metal tools, wheels, or beasts of burden? To understand the answer, we must look not only at Easter Island, but also at humanity's long-lost relationship with the earth, the sky, and the materials of creation itself. The forgotten science of the Moai builders at the core of Rapa Nui's genius was an intimate understanding of volcanic rock. The island's three main volcanoes, Rano Raraku, Rano Kau, and Poike, provided three distinct types of stone. The Moai were carved primarily from compressed volcanic ash, known as tuff, a material that was soft enough to shape with stone tools, yet strong enough to endure centuries of weathering. The ancient carvers didn't simply chip away at random blocks. They read the rock, its grain, its density, its moisture content, and used every natural fault line to their advantage. Through patient work, They created statues that seemed to emerge organically from the mountainside, as if the earth itself were revealing the faces of its ancestors. Modern archaeologists studying the unfinished statues at Rapa noticed something remarkable. Each carving followed a precise ratio, a recurring mathematical pattern where the head, torso, and base aligned according to geometric rules. These proportions weren't accidental. They reflected a system of sacred geometry, a belief that spiritual power, or mana, flowed through symmetrical design. But the real marvel came not from carving, but from transportation. How did the islanders move these multi-ton statues from the quarry to the distant coasts, across hills and valleys? For decades, theories abounded. Some said the statues were dragged on wooden sleds. Others suggested rolling them on logs. But these explanations faced a serious problem. There weren't enough trees left on the island to support such an operation, especially in the later centuries of construction. In recent experiments, archaeologists tested a new theory inspired by oral tradition, that the Moai walked. By attaching ropes to each side of a standing statue and rocking it back and forth in rhythmic motion, a small team could actually make the statue move forward, inch by inch, almost as if it were alive. The experiment worked, using nothing more than ropes, balance, and coordination. The discovery echoed ancient legends that spoke of statues walking to their platforms with the help of spiritual energy. In truth, the walking motion was the perfect engineering solution, using gravity and leverage to move colossal objects upright, conserving both effort and materials. This ingenious method demonstrated that the people of Rapa Nui understood physics on a practical, intuitive level. Their knowledge may not have been written in books or measured in formulas, but it was rooted in deep experience, the kind of wisdom passed down through generations of builders, guided by observation and ritual. The Ahu platforms, precision beyond belief. Beneath the Moai, the islanders constructed Ahu, vast stone platforms that served as ceremonial foundations. These weren't simple piles of rock. Each Ahu was a masterpiece of engineering, built from tightly fitted stones that resisted erosion, earthquakes, and the passage of time. At sites like Ahu Tengariki and Ahu Vainapu, archaeologists found basalt blocks shaped and assembled with astonishing precision. The faces of the stones were polished smooth, their joints perfectly aligned. No mortar was used, yet the structures had withstood centuries of storms, tsunamis, and volcanic tremors. The precision of the stonework puzzled experts. Some compared it to the architecture of Cusco and Machu Picchu in the Andes, especially the wall at Vino, which bore uncanny resemblance to Incan masonry. Could two civilizations, separated by thousands of miles of ocean, have developed the same techniques independently? The resemblance reignited theories of transoceanic contact, the idea that ancient people may have shared knowledge long before modern navigation. The Polynesians were, after all, the greatest seafarers in human history. They navigated open oceans using only the stars, wave patterns, and bird flight paths. Perhaps, just perhaps, they carried ideas and craftsmanship across the Pacific, or received them from others who came before. Whatever the case, the builders of Easter Island possessed more than skill. They possessed understanding. They knew how to balance form and function, weight and harmony, spirit and science. Their monuments were not random works of art. They were expressions of cosmic order, the hidden science of alignment. As archaeologists began mapping the locations of the Moai and Ahu across the island, patterns began to emerge. Many statues were aligned with astronomical points: sunrise on the solstice, lunar cycles, and the movements of key stars. These alignments weren't accidental. The Rapa Nui were sky watchers, inheritors of a vast Polynesian tradition that merged navigation with spiritual astronomy. Their priests, known as Ariki, read the heavens like a map, linking celestial events to the rhythms of the earth. Some researchers noticed that lines drawn between certain Moai sites corresponded to the positions of the Pleiades, Orion's belt, and the Southern Cross constellations that guided ancient sailors across the Pacific. This discovery suggested that Easter Island was more than a settlement. It was a celestial observatory, a sacred mirror of the heavens built in stone. The island itself may have been designed as a kind of cosmic compass, its monuments synchronizing the lives of its people with the cycles of the universe. Even the underground tunnels discovered beneath some platforms appeared to follow these celestial alignments, linking sky and earth, spirit and matter, vibrations of stone, the energy of mana. Beyond geometry and astronomy, there's another layer to Rapa Nui's engineering, one that bridges science and spirituality. The ancient islanders believed that the statues contained mana, a life force or sacred energy channeled from ancestors. The process of carving, erecting, and consecrating a moai wasn't merely physical labor, it was a spiritual rite. Chanting priests performed rituals during construction, infusing the stone with divine energy. Even the materials used had symbolic significance. Red scoria for the top knots represented blood and vitality, while white coral eyes symbolized vision and awakening. Modern researchers studying the acoustics of the Ahu discovered something remarkable. The arrangement of stones and the curvature of the platforms amplified sound waves. When priests chanted or drummed during ceremonies, the vibrations resonated through the statues, creating low-frequency tones that could be felt rather than heard. These sound vibrations, combined with the physical presence of the statues, might have created a psychoacoustic effect, intensifying the feeling of spiritual connection. To the Rapa Nui, it would have seemed that the statues themselves were alive, humming with ancestral power. This fusion of art, science, and faith reveals a profound truth about ancient civilizations. They didn't separate the sacred from the practical. For them, building was prayer. Architecture was ceremony. Engineering was faith in motion. The vanished knowledge. So what happened to this extraordinary knowledge? By the time European explorers reached Easter Island in 1722, much of it was gone. Centuries of deforestation, internal conflict, and social collapse had eroded the island's population and memory. Rituals were forgotten, languages changed, and the mana of the moai was said to have vanished. Yet traces of that wisdom remain, carved into stone, encoded in symbols, buried beneath the soil. The statues still stand, defying time, their silent faces turned toward the island as if watching over secrets too great to be lost. Archaeologists now believe that the builders' knowledge wasn't destroyed. It was hidden, preserved within the stones, awaiting rediscovery by those who could read their language of proportion, alignment, and purpose. Every moai is a message, a conversation between humanity and the cosmos. And as technology advances, we are only beginning to understand what the ancient islanders already knew, that to build in harmony with the earth and sky is to create something eternal. Theories of lost civilizations and cosmic connections for as long as explorers have set eyes on the colossal moai statues of Easter Island. One haunting question has lingered. Who were the people who built them? And how could such an isolated society achieve so much? The deeper archaeologists dig, the more astonishing the story becomes. Not just a tale of one island, but possibly a chapter in a far older and broader human saga. By the mid-20th century, traditional archaeology portrayed Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as a lonely outpost of Polynesian ingenuity, a brilliant but tragic culture that flourished in isolation and then collapsed under its own weight. Yet, the recent discoveries beneath the statues have reignited a wave of alternative theories, ideas suggesting that Easter Island may have been part of a network of ancient civilizations, linked by lost knowledge, long-distance navigation, and perhaps cosmic understanding. Some researchers point to the eerie similarities between the moai and monumental statues found elsewhere in the ancient world. The elongated heads, the solemn faces, the massive stone construction, these traits echo the monoliths of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the giant basalt heads of the Olmecs in Central America, and even the statues of ancient Egypt. Though thousands of miles apart and separated by millennia, the resemblance seems too striking to be pure coincidence. Could there have been a shared source of inspiration? A few scholars, particularly those exploring the idea of diffusionism, suggest that civilizations were never truly isolated, that there existed ancient sea routes connecting distant peoples across the globe. Easter Island, situated in the heart of the Pacific, might once have been a spiritual or navigational hub, a beacon in a forgotten age of exploration that predates recorded history. This theory finds support in Polynesian legends themselves. Oral traditions across the Pacific speak of great migrations, guided not by compass or map, but by the stars. Navigators known as wayfinders mastered the skies, reading the subtle patterns of wind, waves, and constellations to traverse thousands of miles of open ocean. Their knowledge of astronomy was astonishing, passed down through chants and rituals that encoded cosmic maps into memory. It is here that Easter Island becomes more than an archaeological mystery. It becomes a celestial one. Recent studies revealed that many of the Moai are aligned not randomly, but according to precise astronomical coordinates. Some face the rising sun on solstices. Others track lunar cycles or point toward key stars used in ancient navigation. Beneath certain platforms, or ahu, archaeologists discovered petroglyphs and carvings of celestial symbols, suns, spirals, and constellations recognized across Polynesia. These alignments suggest that the island was, at least in part, a cosmic observatory, a sacred landscape designed to harmonize with the heavens. For the Rapa Nui people, the ancestors embodied in the Moai were not just guardians of the land, they were watchers of the sky, mediating between Earth and the divine order above. But there's another, more controversial theory, one that stretches beyond anthropology and into the realm of ancient lost civilizations. Some independent researchers have argued that the technology and precision displayed by the Moai builders indicate access to advanced knowledge that has since been forgotten. They point to the near-perfect balance of the statues, some weighing over 80 tons, carved from volcanic tuff, and transported miles across treacherous terrain. Traditional explanations, involving ropes, logs, and manpower, remain impressive, but still leave questions unanswered. How did a small population on a remote island move such massive structures without metal tools, wheels, or draft animals? Archaeological experiments have shown it was possible using clever leverage and teamwork. Yet the scale of the operation and the accuracy of the carving suggests that something deeper may have been at play. The recent findings beneath the Moai, intricate carvings, buried chambers, and possible astronomical markers hint at a culture that may have inherited or rediscovered knowledge from an earlier, advanced source. Some theorists link this to the idea of Mu or Lemuria, a hypothesized lost continent said to have existed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean thousands of years ago. According to these myths, Mu was the cradle of a global civilization that spread wisdom and technology across the world before being destroyed by cataclysmic events, possibly the very floods and earthquakes that shaped the Pacific Basin. While mainstream science rejects the existence of such continents, geological and cultural clues keep the legend alive. Ancient Polynesian myths often describe ancestral homelands that sank beneath the waves. Could Easter Island be one of the last surviving peaks of a once great civilization now lost to time? Even the island's script, Rongorongo, adds to the mystery. Found carved on wooden tablets, it remains undeciphered to this day. Some researchers believe it may hold clues about astronomical calculations or ancient migrations. Others argue it's a symbolic language tied to ritual and genealogy. Yet, the possibility that it encodes scientific or cosmic data, similar to the star records of ancient Egypt or the Mayan calendar, continues to intrigue scholars. Then there's the magnetic mystery. Researchers using ground sensors have found unusual electromagnetic anomalies around certain Moai sites. The readings spike at specific intervals, suggesting that the stones or the ground beneath them may have unique magnetic properties. While likely natural, some have speculated that the ancient builders could have been aware of these energies, intentionally placing the statues on geologically active spots to amplify spiritual or earth energy. If that sounds far-fetched, it's worth remembering that ancient cultures worldwide, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, aligned there. Monuments with both celestial and geophysical features. Easter Island might have followed the same principle, creating a sacred resonance between sky, stone, and earth. The cosmic theories go even further. A few researchers have drawn attention to the way certain Moai seem to mirror constellations when viewed from above, particularly Orion, Pleiades, and Canopus, all key markers in Polynesian navigation. The island's layout itself, when mapped against the night sky, forms geometric patterns that could have served as a celestial chart. It's as if the island was designed not just to honor the ancestors, but to connect humanity with the cosmos, to the Rapa Nui. This would not have been strange. Their world was alive with spiritual energy. The ocean, the stars, the land, and the ancestors, all part of one vast continuum. The Moai, standing tall and silent, were the physical bridge between realms. They embodied mana, the divine force that flowed through all things. When viewed through this lens, Easter Island ceases to be a mystery of lost isolation and becomes something much more profound. A symbol of universal human longing, the desire to reach beyond the visible world and touch the infinite. Modern archaeologists remain cautious. The evidence of lost continents or extraterrestrial influence is far from proven. But even among mainstream researchers, there is growing respect for the sophistication of Rapa Nui's ancient culture. Their understanding of astronomy, stonecraft, and spiritual geometry was far more advanced than once believed. Theories of cosmic connection may not all be literal truths, but they speak to a deeper reality, that our ancestors saw the universe as alive, interconnected, and meaningful. And in their monuments, they tried to preserve that truth for future generations. Easter Island's mysteries remind us that history is not a straight line from primitive to advance, but a cycle of loss and rediscovery, of forgetting and remembering. Somewhere in that cycle, the people of Rapa Nui left behind a message carved in stone: Dadamonity. Greatest achievements are not born from power, but from reverence for the earth beneath our feet and the stars above our heads. The discoveries beneath the Moai may one day prove that connection beyond doubt. Or perhaps they'll leave us with even more questions. But either way, Easter Island stands as a silent witness to the possibility that we were never as alone or as disconnected as we once thought. And as scientists continue to unearth its buried secrets, they may not just be uncovering the story of a single island, but rediscovering a chapter of the world's forgotten past, when humankind's gaze was firmly set on the heavens, seeking meaning among the stars. The latest discoveries, shocking truths unearthed for centuries. Easter Island has held tightly to its secrets, a silent monument to the ingenuity of its vanished builders. Yet, in recent years, modern science has begun peeling back the layers of volcanic soil and myth to reveal something astonishing. What archaeologists and researchers are now uncovering beneath the surface of Easter Island Ocean to just rewrite its local history. It could reshape our understanding of ancient civilizations altogether. It began quietly in the early 2000s, when archaeologists from the Easter Island Statue Project started systematically excavating several of the island. Moai statues buried up to their necks. To the world's surprise, these were not just heads standing in isolation. Beneath the surface lay enormous, intricately carved torsos, covered in elaborate petroglyphs and symbols that had never been seen before. These carvings appear to represent constellations, sacred symbols, and mysterious scripts resembling proto-writing, a code left behind by the Rapa Nui ancestors. But the real shock came when the excavation teams discovered layered strata beneath some of these statues, a sequence of soil and stone suggesting multiple construction phases over many centuries. Beneath one statue, scientists detected remnants of a paved platform older than any previously documented structure on the island. Radiocarbon dating suggested that it might predate the known Rapa Nui civilization by hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. This finding triggered an avalanche of speculation. Could Easter Island have been inhabited by an earlier, lost culture? In 2018, a team of geophysicists used ground-penetrating radar GPR and magnetometry to survey unexplored parts of Renora, the volcanic quarry where most of the statues were carved. Their instruments detected large underground voids, not natural lava tubes, but man-made chambers connected by narrow passageways. The shape and orientation of these voids suggested a deliberate design, possibly ritualistic or functional in nature. Further analysis revealed traces of ancient pigments and organic residues inside the chambers. Researchers hypothesized that these may have been ceremonial spaces used for offerings or burial rituals, aligning perfectly with the oral legends of the hidden places of the ancestors. One chamber, in particular, seemed to align astronomically with the setting sun during the solstices, a recurring pattern that echoed the islanders' deep connection to celestial cycles. Then came the discovery that would send shockwaves through the archaeological community. Beneath a heavily weathered Moai on the island's eastern slope, excavators uncovered a massive basalt slab sealed over a pit. When lifted, it revealed an array of obsidian tools, carved tablets, and skeletal remains of unknown origin. The tools bore inscriptions similar to Rongorongo, Easter Island's undeciphered script, but more primitive, more ancient. Some of the bones tested using isotopic analysis showed markers inconsistent with the local population. Their isotopic signature hinted at origins possibly from South America or even Polynesian regions far beyond Rapa Nui. This discovery reignited the debate over the island's mysterious connections across the Pacific. Could early South Americans have reached Easter Island long before the Europeans arrived? Genetic studies of ancient Rapa Nui remains show small but undeniable traces of Native American ancestry, dating centuries before European contact. These findings point to an incredible truth: transoceanic contact may have occurred, linking to ancient worlds across thousands of miles of ocean. Adding to the mysteries, recent sonar mapping off the coast of Easter Island has detected anomalous stone formations beneath the seafloor structures, resembling terraces or walls, encrusted with marine sediment and coral. If verified, these could represent remnants of a sunken extension of the island, possibly submerged by ancient tectonic activity. Some researchers speculate that Easter Island may once have been part of a much larger landmass, an echo of the old Tallies of Hiva, a homeland that sank beneath the waves. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence and advanced imaging have been used to reanalyze the Rongorongo tablets. Some AI-driven translations have begun revealing linguistic patterns resembling star charts, genealogies, and agricultural cycles. Further evidence that the Rapa Nui people were far more scientifically sophisticated than history has acknowledged. The writing seems to encode seasonal events and celestial alignments that guided their rituals and navigation. An ancient database of cosmic wisdom etched into wood. Today, Easter Island stands at the intersection of myth and science. Every new discovery beneath its soil, every bone fragment or buried carving, adds another piece to a grand, unfinished puzzle. It reminds us that our world still holds secrets, that history is not static but alive, waiting to be rediscovered beneath layers of time and earth. The shocking truth is this: the story of Easter Island is not merely about isolation or decline. It's a testament to human resilience, intelligence, and connection, a story stretching across oceans, cultures, and millennia. What archaeologists are uncovering beneath its surface may one day prove that the ancient world was far more interconnected, advanced, and mysterious than we have ever imagined. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the Moai, those silent sentinels carved from volcanic stone, lies a buried truth, one that whispers of forgotten civilizations, ancient stargazers, and the enduring mystery of humankind's quest to understand its place in the cosmos. Conclusion: as the sun sets over the endless Pacific, the Moai of Easter Island cast long shadows across the wind-swept plains, silent, timeless, unblinking. For generations, they have stood as mute witnesses to a past shrouded in mystery. But now, the ground beneath their feet is beginning to speak. Through centuries of erosion, isolation, and myth, Easter Island has guarded its secrets well. Yet, beneath its surface, archaeologists have uncovered proof that this tiny dot of land once thrived as a center of innovation, faith, and cosmic understanding. From hidden tunnels and sacred chambers to buried inscriptions and tools from unknown origins, every new discovery paints a more intricate picture of a civilization that was far from primitive. A people guided by the stars, connected to the sea, and united by an unshakable sense of purpose. The shocking truth is that Easter Island's story is not one of collapse, but of endurance. Its people may have faced scarcity, invasion, and isolation, yet their legacy endures in stone, carved with precision, aligned to the heavens, whispering of a world that once was. Modern science now stands where ancient faith once stood, decoding secrets that have slept for millennia. And what we're learning is both humbling and awe-inspiring. Humanity's past is deeper, older, and more interconnected than we ever dared believe. Perhaps Easter Island was never meant to be a warning, but a reminder that even in isolation, Human creativity can touch the infinite. That knowledge, once thought lost, still waits, buried beneath the soil, waiting for those willing to look deeper. As the waves crash against the rocky shores and the night sky fills with stars, the same stars the Rapa Nui once charted, we are left with one haunting realization. The greatest mysteries of our world are not gone. They're still here, hidden beneath our feet, waiting to be rediscovered.